Welcome to Bashys Corner. Islam and Muslim have been an integral part of Denmark for many decades. First with the arrival of immigrants from countries like Pakistan, Turkey and Morocco, and later with refugees from Bosnia, Iran, Somalia, Iraq, Syria and other Middle Eastern countries. Muslim population increased significantly in Denmark. And from the 70s to 80s, the presence of Islam was not an issue, but then politicians like Mogens Glistrup and priests like Søren Krarup and Jesper Langballe started using Muslims and Islam politically in their confrontation with the established parties. Then came Danish People's Party, who took up the torch of Islam bashing and made it into their main political priority to gain influence. And today, most media, political parties and even academics have made Islamophobia a normal discourse. The younger generation of Muslim minorities have started uniting their efforts to better relations between Muslim minorities and the Danish majority. I have invited two of them. That's wrong. I have invited one of them in the studio today for a talk about this work. And welcome to you, Mujahed, Sebastian, Abassi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Can you start by telling us what is your background?
Yes, I'm a Swedish citizen and I'm a Muslim since 5 years of age because my mother converted when I was 5. And in a way I'm very happy for that because it gives me one foot in two worlds in a sense, because being Muslim is something I'm very proud of. Being Scandinavian is something I'm also very proud of. But there is still differences, and you can easier see those when you have a foot in both worlds in a sense. And I'm very fortunate. I'm very happy for that. And I think that is why I interest myself so much for this kind of work that we're going to talk about today.
And that is the relations between Danish people and the Muslim.
Exactly. Yes.
And you are an office holder in this new organization called CEDAR, Center for Danish Muslim Relations.
Yes, that's right.
In Danish that would be Center for Dansk Muslimske Relationer.
Det passer godt.
But why did you choose to start this new NGO when there are tons of Muslim organizations in Denmark?
That's of course a very good question. It should be very simple to answer, and yet I think I have to think through it. But the simple answer is probably that we have a stigmatization and discrimination of Muslims today. There is a lot of hate speech. There is also a lot of hate crime, unfortunately, towards Muslims, and we need to do something about it. We feel we have to do something about it, and I think that is the primary reason that we founded this organization.
But in what way is this organization different? I mean, you could maybe have challenged your efforts into some of the organizations that already existed.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think that we necessarily are very different, and we don't want to be very different in every way. We want to collaborate with all the existing parties, but there has been a lack of coordination on this matter, and that is where we hope to come in and facilitate a more coordinated effort to change these things. But we don't want to challenge existing NGOs and parties. We want to work with all of them, if possible. Yeah.
And you call the organization Center for Danish Muslim Relations.
Yes.
Is it not a bit strange to compare nationality to a religion?
Yes, and we have got that question plenty of times. But my answer to that, which might not be the best one, but that is my answer to it, is that you can be Danish and you can be Muslim and you can be Danish Muslim. And all these groups are groups that are target groups for us. The Danish majority, the Muslim minority and those of us that feel as part of both those worlds, Danish Muslims. So we want to address matters related to all these groups and try to join them together in the ways we can. Yeah.
Okay, Muslims. Now let me ask another question. When Denmark is primarily a Christian country,
yes.
So why not work for a Muslim-Christian relation?
Well, we actually already do. We already have some collaborations on that front, and
with the Danish church, or?
Not directly. Hopefully, in the future, we'll have that too. But there are initiatives such as Faith in Harmony or Tro i Harmoni. There are another organization called IKS, Islamic Christian Study Center, and they are great initiatives that already do this. And we would love to work with them. We already have contact with them. So that is not something we are alien or foreign to. We definitely want to build up on that. Personally, I believe that the interfaith work is probably the best answer to the extremism that we see on both fronts. I mean, if we take Trump, if we take Dansk Folkeparti on one side, and you take the radicalized Muslims, terrorists on the other side, both of these lack the fundamental understanding for the other. And there I think the interfaith work is crucial, actually.
So would you say this interfaith work is the core of what your organization is doing?
It is not the core of it, but it is definitely a cornerstone.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Who is involved in this initiative? Is it only religious people, or is there a place for non-practicing or atheists too, if they should like to be?
It's definitely open for everyone. Yeah. Every Dane that would like to be part of it. Every Dane that wants a more inclusive Denmark, actually, because that is what we are working towards. So everyone that can subscribe to our ideas of everyone having the same rights and freedoms can become a member or can join us in our struggle. Yeah.
Muslims in Denmark come from around 60 different nationalities.
Yes.
Do you think you can represent all of them?
That is something we have discussed, of course, internally, and we don't aim to be the representative of anyone, to be honest. If someone says that we are the representative of them, then we are happy. But our aim is actually not to represent anyone. Our aim is to fight for the rights of Muslims and to secure those freedoms that we have in the human rights that have been written down by the United Nations that we feel are threatened in Denmark now. So that is our aim. And if people then feel that we do a good work and that we represent them, then we have done good work and we're happy. Yeah.
Okay. Do you make any survey among the Muslim communities to find out what they want, or where do you take your lead from?
We have been looking at the data that already exists, and there's some surveys that already exists. We have made some smaller surveys ourselves too, but we want more data, and that is actually part of our work, the research and data collection part, which is very vast and very difficult, but we are aiming for doing that in the future. But what we have seen until now is very interesting results in what Danish Muslims think and what problems and issues that they have. And just recently we could see that both on social media and in established media, most Muslims feel that they are stigmatized, that there is too much hate speech towards them. And also, I mean, we have seen, was it Center for Menneskelige Rettigheder, Center for Human Rights, that recently published a very interesting finding showing that Muslims are definitely the most, what's the English word for it? Udsat på dansk, the most the most targeted group on social media when it comes to this hate speech.
in social media.
Social media, yeah. And then also earlier this year, there was a news in established media about established media also having the same problem. 81% of Muslims considered it a problem. So these are data that we have and that we know.
And so what do you do with this data? I mean, these are quite large numbers, and I think it's quite serious problem that the Muslim minority in this country feel this stigmatization.
Yes.
So what is it that your NGO does to counter this or to change this?
Well, we have a long-term roadmap and we have more short-term plans.
Mm-hmm.
The long-term plan is, of course, to change all of it, to change the discourse, so that we don't talk this way in TV studios, so that politicians don't use that kind of rhetoric. But that is, of course, a long-term project. We won't be there in many years. So on that road, we have several small services, small products, if you want, that we think will facilitate it, such as a source list for journalists that will make it easier for them to find a Muslim, to talk to journalists, as you know, have deadlines, and that is sometimes the reason they can't find a good person to take part in a debate like this, discussion like this. So that is one thing we could do, one small product. But the core of it is, of course, to continue to collect data on, for example, media coverage, so that we know what the problem is. To find out, for example, that specific problem exists, we have collected data on it to begin with. So it all falls back to collecting data and then using it to build strategies and products as such. And also, of course, to make people aware of the problem by running campaigns of different kinds on the data, on the research, again. So that is kind of the model, in a sense, that we are working after.
Okay. Which issues do you think that most Muslims are facing in Denmark? It's this hate speech, or is it, are there other things, other issues?
I think you must divide it into people's individual life and into the group as such, because the group as such, as we have seen and as I mentioned, have problems, issues with stigmatization and discrimination. But on an individual level, I've also met many Muslims that says, I have individually never experienced discrimination or hate. There's a lot of us that haven't. And look at me, for example. You cannot really see that I'm not visibly a Muslim. And the question is, what is visibly a Muslim? But I haven't experienced very much discrimination myself. But I can see that it is a problem. But what I think the individual Muslims' issues is precisely the same as every other Dane. I mean, they want their children to have a good education, they want to have a good work themselves, they want to live in a good neighborhood, they would want a good life, and that is the issue Muslims have as well. It's the same issues as everyone else when it comes to an individual level. Okay,
so there's this difference. So what you're working on is more the upper level, or the group level.
Yeah, you can say on again about the discourse. I mean, the public debate and some of the issues we face with integration, for example. One example of a devastating action taken last year was when Lankia Gymnasium in Aarhus started dividing classes into ethnicity, for example. These kind of initiatives are things we look at with alarm, and that we want to do the opposite of that. We want people to integrate. We want to facilitate so that natural meeting grounds are built, and we think the labor market, schools, these kind of places are the natural meeting grounds where we interact, where we learn to know each other, and destroying those, such as Lankia Gymnasium did, is the most dangerous thing, I think.
There seems to be a lot of Islamophobic propaganda against Islam and Muslims in Denmark. Why do you think it is so? Or do
hate
you
speech,
agree that?
Yes, I do agree. I think there are so many factors and parameters involved in it. We have been looking into the research that already exists on it, and now we are also trying to collect our own. But the already existing research shows that there are so many different things. Let's take journalists, for example. All journalists that portray Muslims and Islam doesn't do bad work, but many of them unfortunately do, and that can be divided into many different reasons. One can be the deadline problem. You don't have time to do your research. You don't have the network. You don't find the right people. So you just take those that screams loudest, like Martin Henriksen, for example. He likes to say something about Islam, and so journalists tend to give him the microphone. Another problem is that some groups, of course, have an intention of doing this. I mean, let's take Martin Henriksen and Dansk Folkeparti, for example. They quite aggressively pushes a certain image of Islam forward. So they have an intention of that, and they have a program for it, also related to media and, of course, politics. And when these people, when these groups have an intention of pushing forward such an agenda, I think most of the rest, the majority of Danes, are taken back because most Danes don't feel that way. And so a counter-agenda hasn't existed yet in a long while. I think very many people have been shocked by such hate and such exclusive politics and media coverage. So I think that is where we come in and we start to think a little bit about how to counter it. Yeah.
I think you're right that a lot of people are shocked and disgusted by these rhetorics, but on the other side, the Danish People's Party, Martin Henriksen's party, are having a lot of support from the voters. So to some extent, it also works. How are you going to counter this? What can your organization do?
Well, we have 3 words that we are working with as our narrative. It's equality or inequality, and that is what we are looking with on the research part. We're trying to find out what is the problem, and then using that knowledge to empower people to do something about it. And when we empower people through campaigns, through talking to people, we think people will do something about the problem, and people will find their own ways of doing that. And as I said, we want to collaborate with others. We don't have all the answers, but so many good initiatives are out there. So we want to encourage people to continue those efforts and help them on. The next step is then empathy in society. Creating that empathy is kind of the goal. So we have a more inclusive society as a result. So that is kind of the overall sketch of it, and then the details of it is those different products that we discussed a little bit on the media, on the politics, on the discrimination part, that kind of comes into all that and makes it a picture, a whole picture.
So, but these are a big plans. I mean, with all this data collections and handling all this data. So, do you have resources and manpower enough to do that? And what about financing this work?
I would actually like to cite Mark Zuckerberg there, because he said that when you want to build something, a business or project, there's 3 steps. And the first step is to find out precisely what you want to do. And that's what we have done until now. So we have kind of finished that first step, made our value proposition, all those kind of stuff that takes a lot of time. That is what we have been doing the last year. Now we're going into the next step. The second step is to find those people that can make it happen. And that's where we are now. We have waited with that step, not only because Mark Zuckerberg says so, but because we believe that is the right thing to do. If you don't know what to do, then you cannot really work effectively. So we are now going into that phase trying to find all these people. We are not there yet, but I'm confident that when people see what we are trying to do, they will support it. And that also answers your question about finance. I think that the goal is not getting money in. The goal is to do something good that people want to support. So our aim is to build some initiative that people feels is an answer to the issues that they see out there, and that they then want to support themselves. And I just want to say that the third step in Mark Zuckerberg's business building is to be stubborn. So that is the last ingredients in our work.
And you are stubborn.
We will do our best, yes, to be that.
And for people who may not know, Mark Zuckerberg is the creator of Facebook.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, yes. So he should know what he's talking about.
Probably. Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, very, very successful business he runs. Okay. You also want to offer Muslim communities service and tools so that they can engage in the society. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes, I mean, diversity management is one such thing. We want to help companies to take care of their Muslim employees in a better way. Education is another thing. We want to go into dialogue with teachers and schools to foster a different sense, a different approach to Islam and Muslims. I mentioned Lanka Gymnasium before, for example. That kind of thing would probably not have happened if there was some kind of understanding in the leadership of that school for Muslims. So our aim is always to help the individual, and actually one example of that, a better example of that, is probably that we want to create toolkits, for example, when it comes to the media part, so that people themselves can complain or give positive feedback to a journalist, but so that they know where to do it. So we can create a toolkit to help people come in contact with journalists easier. But then we don't do very much. We just create a toolkit, and then people can do something themselves.
So it's more about empowerment?
Yeah, and that is maybe even clearer when it comes to politics, what we want to do in the political arena. There we want to encourage people to vote informed. And that is, again, not us doing very much. We are just trying to inform people, okay, Danish People's Party, they stand for what, everyone knows what they stand for. But the rest of the parties, people might not know what they stand for. So informing what both parties and individual politicians stand for and what they believe in can help people to vote informed. And that again is, as you say, empowerment, making people do something for themselves.
Is there a problem with the level of voting? I mean, are there many Muslims who do not vote?
It is a huge problem actually, and that has many reasons, of course, but there was a very nice project going on in the last municipality vote, local elections in 2013, Stemmer på kanten. And if possible, we would like to do something similar, because at that time, I think there was less than 40%, I think it was 32 or 33% or something, of people in general in these, as they call sometimes, ghetto areas. But I would just call suburbs or something less
stigmatized.
Yes, but they managed to raise the voting level from that 32 or 33 to almost 40% by encouraging people to vote. But 40% is still very low.
Yeah.
So there is a problem, and we want to do something about it.
And we have a municipalities election coming up later this year.
Exactly, yes.
So is this a strong focus point for your organization?
It is not a primary, because we have this other discrimination and other media and other focus points, so we won't be able to do such a fantastic big project that the House of Zornig did that last election. But of course we'll try our best, and we will hold some events, and we will encourage people on our way to take part of it, to vote.
And now you are actually jumping to one of my next questions, because I was going to ask, do you plan to have any conferences or seminars or workshops?
Yes, actually the first one coming up now is already the 17th of May, and that will be on the media coverage. I think the English title would be "Who Defines the Image of Muslims," and that will be our first big event actually.
And what is that? Is that a seminar or what? And where does it take place?
We have invited the responsible. What's the name for ansvarlig udgiver? Responsible
editor-in-chief.
Editor-in-chief for Moskeerne bag sløret, the controversial series that everyone has been talking about in Danish media, and also another journalist that has been doing an analysis on the effects of this series, and then some other very interesting speakers. So they will all come up with their ideas, and then in the end sit and discuss why the image of Islam is as it is, and what we can do to change it.
And where will this arrangement take place?
That will be at Verdenskulturcentret. In Copenhagen. Yeah.
In Nørrebro.
Yes, that's right.
København.
Yes.
And will that be open for?
It is open for everyone, but we are happy if people just ticks off on our Facebook event that they're coming, so we know.
So the 17th of May,
yes.
At Verdenskulturcentret at Nørrebro. How you have to find this event on your Facebook page?
It's on the Facebook page, but it's also on our website. So
and the website is
cedar.nu.
Cedar.nu.
Yes.
Okay, so if viewers are interested in this, they should go to this webpage and look for more information. Mujahed, thank you very much. Time is running out, so thank you very much for coming and telling us about Cedar and the work that you do. I wish you the best of luck with all your projects, and
thank you very much.
And hopefully you will have a smashing event on May 17th. Thank you for coming. To the viewers, cedar.nu is the webpage where you can find more information, and you can choose to participate in this event at Verdenskulturcentret Nørrebro, København. Thank you for watching.